Hello, welcome to Coding with Tom. Today we're going to be adding a drag and drop functionality to our app. We will be dragging to our sidebar on the iPad and to the tab bar on the iPhone. We will be displaying this as the favorite restaurants in our app. Let's begin by creating the logic that will handle the favorites. For the favorite service, we're doing nothing new. It's basically the same as the restaurant service where we have a publisher that updates as the source of truth for the favorites. And just as we did with the restaurants, we are caching the favorites on a separate file. Now we're going to proceed to create the use cases. Now we have the use cases necessary to add, remove, and keep track of the favorites. Now let's move on to adding this functionality to the sidebar. Our favorites will be represented as restaurant view models. We're going to be leaving the data favorite method empty. because we'll see how later on we'll be representing the items that we'll be dragging. For the favorite items in the sidebar cell, there's nothing new. We're just going to be creating another cell registration, and we'll add these cells to a new section in the collection view. With this, our sidebar is ready to display the favorites. Now let's move on to add this functionality to the tab bar. For now, the view model will only be responsible of keeping track of the count of the favorites. We will display the number of favorites in the batch of the last tabbar item, which is the favorites item. For our favorites, we won't be doing anything different than we have done up until now. It's just a view model with a publisher and functions to edit the favorites. So I will skip over that part. This is our favorite view controller. As you can see, nothing new. It's just another view controller with a UICollectionView and diffable data source. When we tap on one of the cells, we take it into a restaurant detail. The cells are our restaurant cell that we already know. And we'll add a swipe action to delete. And we needed to add this other method in our view model. In order to support drag and drop, we need to have an NSItemProvider, and to create an NSItemProvider, we need to provide classes that conform to the NSItemProvider writing and reading protocols. So that's what we're going to do here. Our drag item class will be initialized with a restaurant, and because the restaurant is codable, we will be encoding it to data, and that's what we're going to do when the load data method is called. For our drop item, it's the other way around. We get the data, and from that, we're going to be decoding it to a restaurant. With these two classes, now we're ready to support drag and drop. UICollectionView already has some of the implementation done, so the only thing we need to do is conform to the drop delegate in our, to the drag delegate, in our categories view controller. And then we just implement this method where we provide a UI drag item. A UI drag item is initialized with an NSItemProvider, and NSItemProvider, we initialize it with our drag, with our restaurant drag item. Because we are now providing drag items for our restaurant cells, you'll see that when we start dragging, we get this preview. However, if we try to drag the categories cell or the rating cell, we won't get that same behavior. So now our categories is ready to drag the item. Let's move on to the sidebar to support dropping the items. Because in our sidebar, we also use a UICollectionView. Here we need to conform to drop delegate. Now in this method, what we have to do is get from the drag items the restaurant drop item. Since we already provided the implementation in the protocol, most of the work is done for us. The only thing we need to do is just get the drop item and extract the restaurant from them. Notice now the difference when we start dragging, we get that plus icon, meaning that the collection view supports dropping. And when we drop, well, the favorite is added. Red dot is the delete accessory we added. And notice that thanks to the use case, we can now add and delete favorites. The only thing missing now for our sidebar is that when we tap on the favorite, we take the user to the detail of that restaurant. When the user chooses a favorite, we want that restaurant is going to become the focus of the app. For that, we're going to change from the 3-column display to one besides the secondary. And you'll see that when we run and we tap on a favorite, we hide the sidebar and just display the supplementary detail view controller. We make sure that we add this preferred displayed mode setting inside a UI view animate closure, because if we didn't do that, the sidebar would just disappear instead of sliding to the left. In iPhone, our collection view, it's still not dragging, and that's because we need to also enable the drag interaction. Now we can drag an iPhone, but you'll notice that when we hover the drag item, we do not have the plus icon, and that's because we need to support dropping in a custom view, which will be the top bar. To support the drop interaction, our tab-bar controller will conform to the UI drop interaction delegate, and we'll use two methods. One is if the drop interaction can handle the session. For that, we're going to use the identifier we were passing, and the other one is what we will do when the items are dropped, and that's, well, with the session, we load the objects, which are our restaurant drop items, and from that we get the restaurants that we need to add to the favorites. Now that we have that ready, all that's left is adding to the tab bar a UI drop interaction. I made a mistake. We were missing implementing another method, which is returning the UI drop proposal. Here's where we are saying the intention of the drop item, which in this case is going to be copy. That's what achieves that when we drag and we hover over the drop view, we get the plus icon. And as you can see, we are now ready to support drag and drop in our tab bar view, and our favorites view is working as expected. And that was all for today. Supporting drag and drop from a collection view is really easy since most of the work is done for us by the view. And adding the custom behavior to tab bar wasn't that difficult. It's just conforming to one protocol and adding the UI interaction to the view. That was all for today. Hope you liked it. Bye.